Welcome to today's show. I am your host, Eric Darnley Small. Thank you for joining me as always. Thank you for tuning in, and I always appreciate that. And as you guys know already, if you've been to this channel before, you can please like and subscribe this video if you like what you see, if you like what I do. And you can also click the bell to be notified when new videos come up or are uploaded. In addition, you know, if you've been here before, that I'm going to read from certain articles, and I like to show my homework. And the links to those articles, the full articles, are on my Mastodon at mastodon.vtip.me/@ what you missed. And that Mastodon is being updated regularly with new and interesting stories. So you might want to check it out, and you can also reach out to the show through that. I'm going to start today's show, and I'm going to sort of make this a usual thing going forward. And I want to talk about the markets, because it is an early indicator of, it is not how the economy is doing, but it is an early indicator of what is happening on the ground. It is also an indicator of how Trump's base, the billionaire class, of which Elon Musk and others are a part of, how they're seeing this economy, how the Fed is seeing the economy. And it's one of the areas where Donald Trump has not yet infiltrated. Although he's going to get there very soon, I am certain. But he has left it untouched to sort of deal with it at another time. Then I'm going to look at my Mastodon. Mastodon is becoming full of information that I think it's fascinating, that you guys should look out for. But just to let you know where the economy is today, or where the markets are today, it is just before noon. The Dow is down, the S&P is down, and the VIX is up. And as you guys already know, the VIX is the volatility index. It is also called the fear index. And when it's green, that's not good. When it's green, it means it's up. And when it's up, it means that people are fearful of how the stock market is going. And it can give you an idea of where the economy is, or how they perceive the economy. S&P has fallen 500 for the first day in 3 as a benchmark fights to stay out of correction territory. The market was up the last 2 days, Monday and I think Friday of last week it was up, but it is now down. And I suspect the reason is because Fed Chair Powell has said that the economy is slowing, and the likelihood of a recession is rising. Probability of a recession rose to 36% from 23 in January. Average 2025 GDP forecast declined to 1.7 from 2.4. So this is just an early indication, and just a reminder that Donald Trump said on day one he was going to get grocery prices down and he was going to fix the economy. Now he's talking about we're going to have to feel pain, and he's talking about a quote unquote detox. I see this detox, quote unquote detox, is really the birth pains of authoritarianism. It's going to take time for him to fully shift everything from a democracy to an oligarchy, and a fascist one at that, with him at the center. And what he's calling a detox is really the birth pains of a fascist regime, a fascist country. So words matter, and these things matter. And Paul Krugman has a very interesting article. You can see it on the Mastodon, how this administration has sort of flip-flopped. But most surprisingly is the way at which people who you would think are serious people, this guy, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who wasn't some TV talk show host like our Secretary of Defense. This is a real guy who really cares about investor wealth and really, is a smart guy and all this kind of stuff. And he sounds like Baghdad Bob. And I've said that before in a previous video. If those of you who are watching this don't know who he is, Baghdad Bob was the mouthpiece of the Saddam Hussein regime. And during the Iraq War, and shock and awe, where the American forces were making mincemeat of the Iraqi forces, Baghdad Bob was trotted out there to basically lie to the Iraqi people and basically say, nothing to worry about here, nothing to see here. American forces are being beaten back by Iraqi forces. Saddam Hussein is still strong, and all of that stuff. Don't believe your lying eyes. And I remember myself at that time being shocked that someone could just so shamelessly lie, and thinking to myself, who the hell would ever believe this? You could just look outside your window and see U.S. forces were marching down the street. Tanks were coming down the street and destroying everything. Well, here we are now, some, what, 24 years later, 23 years later, and we're in the same situation. We're in the same boat. We have our own Baghdad Bob in the form of the Commerce Secretary and the Treasury Secretary, who's now saying that the economy was so bad under Joe Biden that and was so dangerous what Joe Biden was doing by actually low unemployment, high growth and all of that, and the CHIPS Act and all that kind of stuff, that if Donald Trump hadn't come in and is doing what he's doing with the tariffs and with the uncertainty and with all the destructive actions that DOGE is doing, that the economy would have collapsed. So by destroying the economy, you're actually saving it. So it's important to make that distinction. It's important to compare this to Saddam Hussein's regime. Remember, Saddam Hussein was, quote unquote, democratically elected with something like 90 to 95% of the vote, according to their numbers. Of course, no serious person ever believed that, because he controlled the elections, and if you voted against him, you were thrown in jail. In addition, on that same note of authoritarianism, here it is, Donald Trump has begun to just ignore court orders. People may not know it. It's made a lot of stories, but in case you don't know, a judge had blocked Donald Trump from sending a bunch of migrants to El Salvador to be thrown in jail under a dubious claim of the Alien Enemies Act of whatever. And he's basically saying that we're at war, we're being invaded by Venezuela, etc., and that he has the right under this Alien Enemies Act or whatever to deport anyone, and the judges cannot have any say over it. Well, this judge did have a say and decided that, you know what, I want to look at this case. You've got to give me information. Tell me what it is you're doing. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, knowing who Donald Trump is, they just said, we're not giving you that information, and you have no jurisdiction over us. President Donald Trump called Tuesday for the impeachment. Now, this is new. Impeachment of the federal judge who has issued orders blocking Trump's plan to deport any alleged members of a Venezuelan gang from the United States. Now, remember, he's using this Alien Enemies Act as because he's claiming that they are all a bunch of gang members. But he has no ability, or he feels like he doesn't have to prove his claim under this law, and it is going to, the judge is not having it, other people are not having it, and it's going to end up in the Supreme Court, of course. And I have a feeling they're going to side with the White House. But the most important thing here is that this is the beginning of Donald Trump's dismissing of court orders that he doesn't like. And it's not surprising, because he's a felon. This is a man who is a criminal, and criminals tend to not like laws. So, and he is trying to make, white collar crime great again. And he's doing so in illegal ways. So this is something to look out for. This is another this is, again, another sign that bad things are happening. Just a little bit on my previous, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, or maybe I was just reading it, that Texas has a stronger brand than New York as Wall Street looks south. There is a concerted effort by, people to move towards Texas in order to incorporate. Meta is doing that. Elon Musk is doing that. And how the country has responded, how Delaware, where everyone usually goes, has responded is to change their laws to make it easier for the Elon Musks of the world to do what it is they do. Remember, these guys became, Meta is another one that's looking to move, etc. These guys became billionaires under Delaware law. And now, because they can't be pigs about it and they can't take everything and just ignore, smaller shareholders because they want to get a huge pay raise. I believe Elon Musk was asking for, quadrupling of his salary or something like that. And they said basically no. And a judge in the court that handles just businesses said that, you can't get this much money for whatever reason. I don't know what the legal reasoning was, but for a judge to tell Elon Musk no, they've all of a sudden decided that Delaware is no longer the place to be. And Greg Abbott in Texas, who has opened up its own business court is now beginning to court these people, and a lot of MAGA right wing people are moving there. Meta is moving there, etc. So it's just something again to take a look at the capitulation of these businesses towards MAGA, towards this attack on courts, on anything that they see that they don't like, that is not in their wheelhouse, and it is something to behold. It is something to be aware of. I don't like the idea of concern and worry, but it is a shift and it is a change that is happening that we can't miss this, because this is, again, I'm going to use this term over and over again, but it is the birth pains of authoritarianism and of an oligarchy, where this country is no longer about the American people. It's about the doers, right? This is what meritocracy is all about. Nothing in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence that says we, the business owners, or we, the corporations, we, the people. And although it was founded by rich people, and the founders were all people who were wealthy and had businesses and whatnot, we moved away from that after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which basically codified that all citizens, who are all people born here, are citizens. And now we, the people, refers to all of us. But we're now going back to this idea that no, only we, the doers, the businesses, the corporations, the rich, should have the power. And the rest of you guys, if you can't match that, you guys need to sort of sit back and let us run the show. Speaking of which, of bullying and of these right wingers taking a whole lot of liberties. What's happening on the left? What's happening to our defenders, the Democratic Party? Well, apparently there is a schism between the House and the Senate, and Simon Rosenberg, who does the Hopium Chronicles, mentions this quite a bit on his show. And there is a divide here. The House, except for one person who I like to call the Manchin of the House of Representatives, Jared Golden of Maine, I believe it is, stood with the Republicans. Hughes Camp Perez is the cinema of that duo, and I call them the Manchin and cinema of the House, because they're always willing to stab the party in the back in order to be on the side of the Republicans when you need to have unity at a time like this. And he sided with the Republicans. He is a Democrat in name only. It's Maine. He is from Maine. And he was the only one that decided to side with the Republicans on this terrible bill. And if I were Hakeem Jeffries, I would have gone to his district and told the people of Maine who voted for him why he needs to get in line. There's no party discipline in the Democratic Party. And what's made it worse is the same thing is happening in the Senate. Apparently, the Senate and the House are not in unison. And Joy Reid did a service by putting up this poster here. I don't know where she got it from. Courier, I guess, is the website. But these are the Democrats who caved. And there's something very interesting to note here. And I just want to focus on this. More than 50% of these Democrats are Northeast Democrats. So we're looking at the two New York Democrats. We're looking at New Hampshire, the two New Hampshire Democrats. We're looking at Illinois Democrat and Pennsylvania Democrat. Cortez Masto, I'm not exactly sure what her deal is voting for this whole thing. We know that Nevada, their governors went to Republicans. So there's something going on in Nevada that I'm not clear on. Apparently, she must be seeing the politics moving in her direction, maybe towards like an Arizona sort of sense of it. But the thing is that these Democrats in the Northeast are apparently very concerned about growing Republican power in their states. We know that in Pennsylvania, we lost a seat there in the Senate, which I don't know. That shouldn't have happened. And of course, Pennsylvania went for Trump. So, Fetterman was one of the only ones who came out early and said, I'm voting for this thing. Didn't even see what it was. He said, I'm voting for it to keep the government open. So Pennsylvania is no longer a solidly blue state or reliably blue state. But New York has also got issues. My state has also got issues, as apparently does New Hampshire. We have two races coming up this year, and it is in Virginia, and it is in Virginia and New Jersey. We can take back the New Jersey the Virginia governorship from Glenn Youngkin, who was at one point in time an average everyday Republican who has now become MAGA and MAGAfied. We should be able to take that because a lot of Virginia state, a lot of people in the state who live in Virginia work in D.C. and are federal government employees. So they can't like what Donald Trump and DOGE is doing. So we should be able to claw back that seat. In addition, New Jersey may be a tough lift. I mean, I don't understand what's going on. Apparently, the current governor, both governors are term limited out. That's why this is becoming an opportunity. But apparently, the New Jersey governor, whose name I'm blanking on, is not very popular. And I am wondering more and more whether what's going on in New York is beginning to spill over into New Jersey. In other words, people seeing Democrats as a tax and spend and as taking more of their money, and someone needs to do something about it. That is going to be very interesting going forward to see what happens. But get out and vote, and you need to be aware of the fact that if you're in New Jersey, that your state is up for governorships. Another one before I get to the story that I want to talk about today is this very interesting story. This is in the Mastodon. Links to Crooks and Liars, which is a great website. The Mastodon really gets a lot of information from CNBC, Crooks and Liars, which is a great website that I like a lot, as well as the Substacks for Paul Krugman and Heather Cox Richardson, and just recently the Joy Reid's own new Substack. But this story out of from Rachel Maddow, if you don't want to watch the whole video, just watch this clip, and you can click on this and go back to the actual video. But it's a disturbing story, and another one of the growth pains that I talk about of authoritarianism. Rachel Maddow highlights how DOGE is going into federal buildings that are not under the control of the executive branch, and they're going in with the Marshal Service, and they're going in with basically an armed team. The FBI apparently went in at one point in time. They're going in armed to whether the people there say so or not. They're bulldozing their ways in, and they are locking doors behind them to prevent the people who are there. Apparently, they did this at one organization that was apparently had nothing to do with the federal government, and then they did it at this other international peace, USIP, a nonprofit that does work exposing threats posed by China to neighboring countries like Taiwan and many others. The Chinese Communist Party is a major business partner of Elon Musk. They have information the CCP would love to have. This is not good. Acting president and CEO says DOGE has broken into our building. So this is very concerning, and it's very concerning about how they're doing it. They're not doing judges' orders. They're basically doing this on executive orders. They're going in with force. Apparently, at this particular location, at this peace independent agency, I can't remember the name of it, the Institute of Peace. Apparently, they called the police, the DC police, and DC police joined DOGE and told the people they had to get out there. And instead of helping the people who called them, they turned on them. So very concerning, very worrying, and it is something to monitor. I try not to panic about certain things, but it is definitely something that we can't turn a blind eye to because it is the change that is coming, and it's going to be how Donald Trump takes over the country. Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Speaking of which, the other important race that is happening is in Wisconsin. I'm not going to go into the history because I've done it on many a video. You can take a look at my other videos on that. But basically, Wisconsin was terribly gerrymandered so that Republicans didn't even have to work at elections in order to win elections. And they had gotten themselves into a supermajority. The Supreme Court of the United States refused to challenge those districts, those gerrymandered districts, and said only the state courts can do it. And the state courts in Wisconsin were 5-4 Republican, and they upheld these gerrymandered districts. Only 2 years ago, the Democrats were able to flip 5-4 Democrat and liberal. And that flipping of that seat, Janet Protasiewicz won that seat. Doing that, struck down those maps on a state level, on a state level. And they were able to claw back a number of seats into Democratic hands, removing the veto-proof majority that Wisconsin had. Now they're hoping to ungerrymander the federal seats so that the House and the Senate will be much more fairer to Democrats. But they can only do it if they can hold on to the Supreme Court. And a liberal or a Democratic Supreme Court justice is retiring. And that has made now 5-4 an opportunity for Republicans to claw back that seat. And it's an important race, so important Elon Musk has gotten involved in it. And it says this is a Democrats' anti-Musk strategy gets first test in Wisconsin election. Why this is important is it's going to be the first time that Democrats are able to see how unpopular Elon Musk and DOGE is and whether they can harness that unpopularity to winning elections. So not winning basically for something, but against something. And hopefully Elon Musk, who has supported and who has decided that he's going to put money behind the guy Schimmel in this, or Schimmel, whichever you pronounce it, in this. He is the Republican judge that they want. Crawford is the Democrat that Democrats want, the quote-unquote liberal judge that Democrats want. Elon Musk is working very hard to make sure that she does not get on the bench, but in fact, MAGA Schimmel does. And it says billionaires from both sides of the political spectrum are pouring money into a race that is poised to break records for the most expensive judicial contest in U.S. history. This is the Wall Street Journal reporting. John McCormick on March 15th, 2025. Let's listen.
Elon Musk has become a central character in a Wisconsin Supreme Court campaign after pouring millions into a race that marks the first major 2025 ballot test of Democratic efforts to cast the world's richest man as a political villain. Ahead of the April 1st election, Democrats have focused on Musk nearly as much as the actual Republican candidate. Musk is increasingly unpopular with Democratic and independent voters as he leads Trump's efforts to cut federal employees and spending. He is part of the party's playbook in elections later this year and the 2026 midterms, especially if Wisconsin Democrats can show him to be a political liability for Republicans. The contest between liberal Dane County Judge Susan Crawford and Republican Brad Schimmel, a former state attorney general and current Waukesha County judge, is technically nonpartisan, but neither party is viewing it that way. Crawford is making abortion rights central to her campaign, while Schimmel is wooing Trump's base and focusing on his experience as a prosecutor. Schimmel said in an interview he is grateful to have Musk's financial support, but has never spoken to him. He declined to promise to recuse himself if elected, and Musk has business before the court because such questions are tough in the abstract. Musk was drawn into the race by the prospect of flipping the court's control, according to a person familiar with the passee's activities. The organization is targeting infrequent voters, the person said, as it did in support of Trump's election in November. While Musk has attracted the most attention, he's just one of the billionaires weighing in on the race. Among Democrats, they include financier George Soros, $1 million, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, $500,000, and LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, $250,000. Their donations to the state Democratic Party were funneled to Crawford's campaign. Richard and Elizabeth Uihlein, whose packing supply company is based in Wisconsin, gave $1.3 million to Republicans to help Schimmel, and their super PAC has already spent or has reservations for $2.5 million in advertising. Other Republican billionaires financing the race include roofing magnate Diane Hendricks, $975,000, and Joe Ricketts, $500,000, the founder of what became online brokerage TD Ameritrade and an owner of the Chicago Cubs. The GOP mega donors made their contributions to the state Republican Party before it transferred nearly $1.7 million to Schimmel's campaign. A Marquette Law School poll taken in late February of Wisconsin, voters showed the race very much up in the air. The survey also showed 53% of voters overall view Musk unfavorably, a number that jumps to 58% for independents and 97% for Democrats.
So this is going to be very interesting, I think, going forward, because one of the things we're seeing is how unpopular Elon Musk is and what he's doing is, and how much Democrats can make this into an actual issue. I think it's somewhat skeptical and maybe somewhat dubious to think that he can that you can actually win this race being against the other guy. But we're at such polarizing times, it may be that would be enough to get this race to win. And if it does work, it's going to affect how Democrats run this entire come the midterms. Particularly, it's also going to affect how they run in New Jersey and in Virginia, I believe, and it's also going to affect the midterms. But just to show you how scared, it's not just enough that you've got all this money being poured in, but you've got this dirty tricks going on, which is not uncommon, apparently in Wisconsin or anywhere. But this is a story that says, Wisconsin officials remind voters that election date after third-party mailer gives the wrong date. And it says, this is from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Molly Beck is the writer, March 14th, 2025. And it's one example of just how desperate the other side, the Republican side, is. And not, Democrats apparently may have done this as well, but it goes to show you that this is not a race that's going to be run on the good faith of the other person. But it's going to be hoping that people don't come out, that people forget, and that the other side is not able to bring out the vote and bring out the voters. What Democrats, I think, are hoping is that anger over what Trump and Musk are doing and Republicans are doing will affect this race. Let's take a look.
Wisconsin election officials are reminding voters of the correct date of the April 1st spring election after receiving reports of third-party groups sending misleading mailers and other campaign materials with the wrong election date. In one case, some Wisconsin voters have received postcards designed to appear to support liberal state Supreme Court candidate Susan Crawford and telling voters to vote in an April 11th election, 10 days after the real election date. Some of the mailers are handwritten, sent from other states like California, Connecticut, and New York, and at least one used the wrong first name for Crawford. The mailers aren't the first time Wisconsin voters have received misleading information about election dates. In 2024, Apple's voice-enabled digital assistant, Siri, provided wrong information when asked about the date of Wisconsin's Republican presidential primary. March 27th is the last day for most voters to request an absentee ballot for the April 1st spring election. But because the deadline creates an unrealistic time frame to get ballots back to clerks in time to be counted, Wisconsin Elections Commission Administrator Megan Wolf said Friday she recommends voters request a ballot as soon as possible at myvote.wi.gov.
So this is another example of the worry that the Republican Party is having, I think, over the chance that Donald Trump and Elon Musk unpopularity could have a downward effect on other races statewide. The battle going forward is going to be on the state. We know now on the state level, we know the federal government, Democrats on the federal level are a complete basket case and a mess. Not only have the American people voted against them, and their numbers are just atrocious in terms of approval levels, but in addition, there appears to be no sense that they see the seriousness anymore as they did during the election. They don't see the seriousness of what Donald Trump is doing, and they've been cowed and they're weakened by it. They are not a fighting party on the federal level. On the state level, it's a whole different story. So that's going to be fascinating to look forward to. We're going to have other races before the midterms to test this theory of going after Elon Musk and seeing if his unpopular nature is enough to turn the Republican Party and bring out Democrats and turn the country against the Republican Party, Musk, and Trump. Thank you for joining me on today's video, and you'll see me on the next one. Take care, everyone. Hey there, fantastic viewers. Eric Darnley Small here, and I hope you're loving today's episode of What You Missed. You've reached the end of today's show, but don't worry, there's more show coming up. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click the bell so that you'll be notified when more content is available. You can also help the channel by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. It helps the YouTube algorithm find new viewers so that I can keep bringing you all this incredible content you enjoy. But wait, there are more ways to support the show. You can make a contribution through the show's PayPal, which goes a long way in helping produce even better content for you. And consider becoming a part of our growing community by joining our Mastodon site at mastodon.vtip.me/@whatyoumissed for more engaging discussions and exclusive updates. And here's something you won't want to miss. Mark your calendars for our live show streaming on YouTube and stream.vtip.me Monday mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your support means the world to me, and together we're making What You Missed the best it can be. Thanks for being a part of my journey.